Taylor.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. In my role as the Chair of the APPG on the future of aviation, travel and aerospace, the debate on SAF has been a focus of many of our meetings. So as a coverall, I should declare interest having met with Airports UK, Airlines UK, ADS Group, LanzaJet, BAC British SAF, Valero, Alphanar and others over the past 6 months, and also worked in the aviation industry for 16 years prior to being elected. I speak in support of new clause 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tabled by my colleagues, and also new clause 7. And I also encourage the government to support amendments 8 and 9 tabled by the Conservatives, which would strengthen and improve this bill and give us the best chance to achieve these targets. And I'll tell you why. In 2023, aviation accounted for 2.5% of global energy-related CO2 emissions. However, when non-CO2 effects are included, its contribution to climate warming increases to approximately 4%. Whilst a small fraction of global emissions, it is not insignificant. However, from my experience, few sectors take as seriously their role in bringing down emissions and tackling climate change as aviation, primarily because fuel burned and emissions released is money spent. Decarbonising aviation and achieving net zero carbon UK aviation will require a huge range of different measures, as colleagues have already been made clear. Measures such as Operation Blue Skies, a global contrail avoidance system, will reduce the density of the heat-trapping contrails produced by aircraft, which creates almost half of the overall climate warming impacts. Continuing improvements in aircraft engine and airframe efficiency is also critical, as mentioned by other colleagues. British innovation in aviation is something we should be incredibly proud of. Projects such as the Airbus Wing of Tomorrow programme, which I saw at the plant in Filton in Bristol this summer, deliver continued improvements in carbon emissions per revenue passenger kilometre. That will form a huge slice of the reduction in fuel consumption. Other innovations and schemes that are already in the mix present opportunities too for greener aviation. Airspace modernisation will produce more direct flight routes, less congested airspace and fewer en route delays. And smarter investments in capacity building have the potential to reduce landing and takeoff delays that burn fuel as aircraft circle airports or idle on taxiways waiting for slots. In the long term, I have confidence in our world-leading aviation industry to develop true zero-carbon aircraft power plant alternatives like battery, hybrid and hydrogen-powered flight. Just like Zero Avia, who are at the cutting edge of pure hydrogen-powered flight in the Cotswolds, which I also visited in August. But in the meantime, we must look to sustainable aviation fuel to reduce the carbon emissions of our current technology aircraft and bridge the gap until technology can catch up. Because this technology can deliver proportionately the greatest reduction in emissions by 2050. SAF can achieve an average of over 70% greenhouse gas emissions saving on a life cycle basis. And we can achieve twice as much energy capture by producing SAF than from producing energy from waste, for example. Third-generation SAFs, at the most exciting cutting edge of SAF production, could produce aviation fuel from thin air via combining CO2 and green hydrogen powered by renewable energy. Of the major contributors to climate change emissions around the globe, almost every other use of fossil fuel has a readily available alternative that can be swapped in for immediate use. The only barrier is availability. We've made huge strides forward in industries where we recognise the benefit not just to the economy but to society and to individual liberty and quality of life. And that means we must preserve and enhance them for future generations. Over the past 250 years, our trains have developed from coal to diesel to electricity power. We did not ever countenance the idea we should use our rail network less nor travel less around the growing network of railways that built Great Britain for 200 years. We instead invested in the technology that allowed us to continue to trade and travel with reduced emissions and pollution. Our electricity generation has gone from coal to gas and now to solar, wind and nuclear. Again, we did not suggest we should phase out the light bulb or electric kettle or the factories powered by electricity that build the exports that are now traded around the world. We stepped up and became a world leader in carbon-free power. Petrol-guzzling road vehicles are now being replaced at an encouraging fast rate by the hybrid and fully electric alternatives. And again, we did not suggest the retirement of bus routes, who carried the people, and the lorries that carried the goods and served as the backbone of Britain. We pushed forward with battery and hybrid power plants and the tightening of emission standards for fossil fuel vehicles. Madam Deputy Speaker, Britain has long been able to bank on its wealth of innovation and expertise. We reject short-termism and refuse to accept that the energy transition is a zero-sum game. And in an age of populism, and I dare say eco-populism, whatever that is, it's more important than ever we fall back on the proud tradition. We should not, in fact we cannot, give into a worldview of climate action that is stunted by the blinkers of zero growth, miserly, defeatist mindset. The British people deserve better than that. And they cannot be expected to go willingly into a greener future if that future is one where they are poorer or face restrictions on their mobility and liberty. That is exactly what restricting the abilities of our communities and industries to travel and trade around the world via our global aviation network would do. Now, let me be clear. If I didn't think we could make this transition in aviation, I wouldn't be taking this view. And while I share and support the healthy scepticism of many of my colleagues, I tend to approach issues like this with a yes-if, yiffy attitude. I say yes if we can deliver the SAF required to meet the SAF mandate targets and the resulting emission reductions, then we must go ahead with it. And to answer the question, from everything I know about my own experience, everything I've heard and seen from the industry, and my faith in great British innovation, we are capable of delivering that SAF. Measures like this bill provide a good starting point for starting this revolution. This bill is supported by all parties, by UK airlines and airports, and there should be straightforward to pass this afternoon. Again, we're competing to make it better. I'm glad to see that most of us recognise in this place the UK's world-leading aviation sector, which supports over 1 million UK jobs and is an enabler of key UK growth-generating industries and exporters, as recognised in the industrial strategy. So I'd ask all members to support the budgeting domestic UK SAF industry as it seeks to add 10,000 new jobs by 2030 and up to 60,000 by 2050, incentivising billions of pounds of investment into former UK industrial heartlands, as mentioned by colleagues. So, I will close. I welcome the Minister's place to finally deliver this bill following his contribution in Bill Committee, and I encourage the Government to take on board the amendments and new clauses which are meant, I'm sure, to improve this bill and make our climate change goals that bit easier to achieve. Thank you.